Writing the basic business letter. Understanding how to write a basic business letter is an essential skill for every college student today. Although you may not have written a basic business letter in the past or think that you will need one in the near future, I assure you it is a skill that will become important before you know it. We've provided some resources for you. The Basic and Miscellaneous Parts of a Business Letter slideshow. Just click it and it will open up. We'll take you through the basic parts of a business letter, as well as the resources found at the Purdue Online Writing Lab, also known as OWL. This resource can help you for a variety of writing tasks, but today we're focusing on the basic business letter. As you see, we're in the basic business letter section. We can scroll down and it talks about the parts of a business letter, and it shows you a sample, and you can actually click on the sample and get it to open in its own window. In the slide presentation, it talks about two types of headings: the modern heading, which would be used for a company, and contemporary heading used for an individual. Of course, that's what you'll be doing. You'll be creating your very own letterhead. We'll be teaching you how to do that. So at the top of your letter will be your letterhead. Next, you'll have the date. So if we look at Purdue, you see that the sender's address is usually included in the letterhead. The letterhead should have your address, your name, your title, include your street address, your city, your zip code, your email address, your phone number, any contact information that you would think would be helpful for the person receiving the letter. Next, you will include the date. The American date format is what you're using. For this course, we want you to write out the month, the day, and the year 2 inches from the top of the page. Notice that it says, depending on which format you are using for your letter, you can left justify or center the date. When you choose a format for your letter, you want to be consistently following the format that you've chosen. Again, when we scroll down, you'll see that this format has everything left aligned. Another format would have the date centered and other items centered as well. Consistency is the key. Let's go back to our slideshow. The inside address is the next piece that you'll include. The inside address is where you put the recipient's address. So this would be your teacher's address at the college. It's recommended that you have a specific person when you're writing a letter that you want to address this to. If you don't have a person's name, do some research. See if you can find someone in particular to address it to. If you're unsure of a woman's preference, whether it be Ms., Mrs., Miss, you can always use the MS, Ms. If the person has a title, like a doctor or professor, use that title. To write the address, use the U.S. Post Office format. The inside address begins 1 line below the sender's address or 1 inch below the date. It should be left justified no matter which format you are using. Here are some examples. This is placed as a left-hand margin at approximately 4 or 5 single spaces below the date. They've given you examples. Mr. They have his name, his title, address. Next, we move on to the salutation. Use the same name as the inside address, including the personal title. So over here we have an example. Dear Mr. whomever, dear title whomever. The salutation is how you are saluting that person. It serves as a greeting for the addressee. So we have so far the date, a line, the person that we're sending it to, their address, a line, the salutation, their name, and a colon. If you find inconsistency in the guidelines that you're provided, go with the OWL Purdue guidelines. In the salutation, if you don't know a reader's gender, use a non-sexist salutation, such as their job title, followed by their name. You also may just write "Dear," first name, last name. Next comes the meat of the letter, called the body. Here, Purdue OWL is referencing the different formats, block and modified block. They're telling you how to set those up. Again, let's scroll down. And this is the button that you can click to open this in a new window and see the entire sample. This will let you move to the next style and the next style. So we have block, modified block, etc. It doesn't matter which style you choose, just be consistent in following it all the way through. When writing a business letter, be careful to remember that conciseness is very important. In the first paragraph, consider a friendly opening and then a statement of the main point. You want to get right to it. Why are you writing this letter? The next paragraph should begin by justifying the importance of the main point. The next paragraph or two should follow through with your justification, providing any background information and supporting details. The closing paragraph should again restate the letter and in some cases request action for follow-up. So in our sample from our presentation, the body is considered the message of the letter. It has three parts: the opening, the body, and the closing. Next, the letter itself has a closing. The closing begins at the same vertical point as your date and one line after the last body paragraph. Capitalize the first word only. For example, "thank you" doesn't have a capital Y. And leave 4 lines between the closing and the sender's name for a signature. If a colon follows the salutation, a comma should follow the closing. Otherwise, there's no punctuation. In our slideshow, complimentary close reminds us that this serves to close the end of the message, just as saying goodbye serves to end the conversation. Respectfully yours, sincerely yours, are probably the most appropriate ones for you to use for a professional letter. Truly yours would be more on a personal nature. The slideshow talks to us about the signature that we would include. Of course, it is the name of the person writing the letter, and there are 2 types. One is when you're writing the letter as a representative of a company, and one is when you're writing a letter as a representative for yourself. In this example in class, you're going to be writing it for yourself, so you'll simply write your name. Sometimes you will have other pieces to a letter that you'll need to include. Be sure to look at those in this slideshow. We won't go over those here, but in case you're writing letters of various types where you need to have specific recommendations, references, attention certain people, etc., there's some good notes here for you. Last but not least, back to our Purdue Online Writing Lab notes, you see enclosures. Just as noted in the slideshow, enclosure means, is there anything else that's enclosed in the letter? Did you enclose a check? Did you have notes? Did you have a contract? So if you've enclosed any documents along with the letter, possibly your resume, you would type enclosures, the word enclosures, and the number that you have 1 line below the closing. So if there's 1 document, you would include 1. As an option, you may list the name of each document that you're including in the envelope. For instance, if you've included many documents and need to ensure that the recipient is aware of each one, it might be a good idea to list the names of the documents. Back to the slideshow. Sometimes you'll need to note that this is confidential. Be sure to state that. And that's the end of the slideshow. There are others out there that you can certainly take a look at. I got this from slideshare.com. Again, to open up the slideshare.net. Again, to open up the presentation, you're going to click Link to SlideShare page or click the picture. It will open up. You can click the arrows forward and backward. You see that there are 11 slides, and you can click this button to view it full screen. The Purdue Online Writing Lab gave us the samples, and I have that opened here on the screen. They recommend that you have 2 inches for the letterhead. You have the date, and again we can go through each of those pieces here. You will have your letterhead, the date, the inside address, the salutation, and the body. Salutation, body of the letter, closing, signature area, enclosures. And here's another format. The date is centered, so is the closing. Here things are indented, date is centered, so is enclosing, closing, and signature. Remember to be consistent in whatever format you choose. These are the basics to writing a business letter. This is the end of the tutorial.